You see, uh, the three key succession supposed to be first the continuous development, that everybody in that company have to have the training and development all the times, including self-development. The second key is supposed to be strong team, and they confirmed that they had only one strong team in the company. And the third one key success is rigorous intention, strong intention to do.
Okay, Suchada, I'll be back to you. Mr. David Lee,
Yeah.
you were a professional, HR professional for more than 30 years. How does it impact in your country, the HR transformation, and what benefit does the HR transformation give on the rapid development of Hong Kong?
Yeah, it's really a story to tell. You know, in case of in HR, we have been transforming from HR manager, managing the HR function, to become a strategic business unit, SBU, what we call focusing on human resources, and then we become the business partner. So that's all these changes is as a result of social and economic changes in Hong Kong. You know, in the past 2 decades, Hong Kong has exercised, going through a lot of changes economically, structurally, okay, and that would reflect on the impact of HR. When we were doing the HR function, at that point of time, we were just doing those are technical issues, right? Mechanical things. We don't talk about HR competency, but now it's changed. All the HR professionals are focusing on competency, HR competencies, not technical competencies, and strategic visions. How do HR contribute and add value to business, to the organization? And that is one of the major roles in HR that I see transforming. And the other thing is that in HR, we talk about talent development. In terms of talent development, we are not talking about teaching. We are not talking about skills enhancement. We are talking about the enhancement and the competency uplift within the organization, within different levels of the employees. And for that particular purpose, it's not for the immediate manpower need. It's for the future need of the organization. And that is why I said that HR function now in Hong Kong is a little bit different. We are a strategic partner. We plan for the future, and that is why somewhere, somehow, we find our HR office very, very close to CEO office. And it is only the HR people who knows about what the organization is going to be, not today, 2 to 3 years from now. And it is the HR manager or the HR executive to advise the board what manpower they need. And it is the responsibility for the HR to develop this kind of people. So that is a lot of, the transformation. You can say that in a few words to summarize it, from a very technical aspect into a strategic role. And in that strategic role, we are not actually doing typical or conventional HR. We are doing strategic management, people management, and for the individual who is doing HR, we have to transform ourselves. We have to transform ourselves, not to put ourselves as an HR manager. We have to put ourselves and look into that we are a business manager. HR is a business function within the organization. And that is where we see, and I see HR in Hong Kong, the arena is changing. How we are transforming ourselves from an HR practitioner into a business HR. And in that, we have to change organization culture. Make people within the organization to think that to look at HR, not HR is go to HR for paperwork. Go to HR for value-added service, and that is where HR has a value and contribute to the organization.
So, David, if I could follow you properly, so this is not mere focusing on an organization's effort to developing efficiency of an individual related to HR. How important is that to have a large or important policy from the government to steer through the HR objectives to achieve?
Yeah, now that is very important thing. This is very, very important. Thank you for this very good question. Is that any government, they have to be responsive or reactive to the social situation, to the social environment. And at the same time, as an HR practitioner, we have to to act as a bridge between stakeholders, employees, management, and government policy. Let me give you an example. In Hong Kong, there are some very hot issues. First, minimum wage. Secondly, standard work hours. Now, from the government perspective, they are just policy makers. They set the policy. What are the consequences to the employer, to the employee, and to the HR practitioners? So, as an HR practitioner, we have to voice this out to the government, say what are the implications administratively, policy-wise, politically, socially. Because once you change the work pattern, it would increase staff costs. It will have impact on everybody. So who is going to do that linkage? HR. Now that is on the policy side. But on the other hand, when we are interpreting or exercising this policy to the organization, we have to explain this to the employee because everybody is being impacted. So I see in that sense is that HR has a very critical role in the bridging between policymakers, stakeholders, employers, employees, and all the business chambers.
Sorry, Arisindam Jagannath Naidu, I kept you waiting for long. We know that Malaysian Institute of Human Resources Management is the leading body for training in support services and human resources management in Malaysia. So, I mean, apart from performing a role from your organizations, if you look at the in a greater perspective in Malaysia, how the HR transformations is taking place in your country?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to every one of you. Basically, when you talk about HR transformation, it is moving from people-focused to business-focused. Now, in our country, we want to be a developed nation by 2020. So, to be a developed nation by 2020, the government has introduced the minimum wage plus GST. Now, these two elements has caused high cost of operation to the industries. And because of the high cost of operation, you find that the low industries cannot operate anymore. So, indirectly, the HR has to become a business partner, has to become business-minded. So, they have to look at cost-cutting, productivity, efficiency. So, HR transformation is a forced item. And they start learning, and this is where we are. Everybody is a business partner, and HR is in business.
Okay. We are definitely looking at Malaysia with a great degree of curiosity that how fast they are moving on. I mean, the great leadership, huge motivation, and significant development around in many spheres of life. So, do you have any advice to give for the countries, neighboring countries or friendly countries to pursue on the transformation of human resources in their respective countries?
Actually, internationally, HR is same. Whether you do HR in US, HR in London, HR is the same. There's no difference. But the difference is made by the HR person. As you heard this morning, and everybody will know, we went to a program in Singapore. They say, who is the next CEO? Which profession can take on the CEO? They said HR. But at the same time, the HR person cannot become a CEO because he lacks business acumen. So basically, HR is lacking business knowledge. That's the only thing. So whichever country is not a problem. It's the HR profession we are talking about. So the faster we share the knowledge of the CEO the better the HR profession will become. Because anywhere, wherever the CEO operates, he knows what he wants to do for the business. So that's basically the answer. It's not the force of the country or the force of the profession. It is the profession itself. Thank you.
David,
Yes.
what is the most trickiest thing in HR transformation process?
You mean the trick is
Yeah.
getting the right message across wrongly. That is to say, when we are communicating the message, that message is being misinterpreted. And the trickiest thing here is that how do we ensure that the correct message is being received in the way that we want them to receive? So that is the most important part, what I see. One word only to summarize. Communication.
Communication, yeah.
Yeah, make sure the communication is right, correct, and to the targeted audience. Second thing is to ensure and double check that during this communication process, there are no interference or disturbances. We all know the 2080 principle. So this is two areas that I think are one of the very trickiest parts.
R. Mohandas, I mean, in India, generally the level of the degree of investment in human resources, is that satisfactory in your country? I mean, in terms of funding, I mean, organizational funding or in the government ways, how far they, I mean, the amount or degree of money they are funneling on or they are putting forward to develop the human resources in your country?
In India, I would say it's, the amount being spent is huge. One is government itself is spending, as I explained, on skill development and other things. Then there are a lot of educational institutions, universities and other things, they are all involved in that. Then organizations themselves, they are spending a lot of money in training their own workforce. This thing, that's a huge amount is being spent. Apart from that, now the government, they have amended the Companies Act, where they have stated now 2% of the profit has to be spent on CSR, corporate social responsibility, by the various companies. So this 2% of the money each corporate spends, mostly it is in the area of education, health, this thing. So through that also they are trying to outreach the people who are not able to get good education or training. They are through this CSR spending also, they are trying to see that the education is given, skill is given. So the enormous amount of money is being spent on the human resource development, because everybody knows that is going to be the future of the country. Today what you are investing, there only is going to give them return later on. So that's why huge investment is taking place on human resource development.
How you are dealing with in terms of investing fund or money on HR development?
HR department.
Yeah.
Right. It differs from organization
I mean,
to
apart from education, developing skills, efficiency, research, training, and so on.
Right. I mean, you are referring to organizations in Sri Lanka, right? It differs from organization to organizations. Now, when you take Sri Lankan scenario, there are, I can classify them under four. First, of course, organizations operating internationally. There are organizations come up in Sri Lanka after opening our economy. After introducing open economy, as you all know, Sri Lanka happened to be one of the very few countries opened their economies. We of course opened our economy in late 70s, 78. Since then, the industries were developing, and as a result, today there are companies operating in Sri Lanka, operating like multinationals. There are multinationals in the country, but apart from that, we have our own companies operating. Even in Bangladesh, there are companies operating here, Sri Lankan companies. So their investment for HR is huge. I mean, in terms of their revenue, perhaps it can be 1 or 2% like in terms of the revenue. But then you get public quoted companies, that is public quoted companies operating in Sri Lanka, blue chip companies. Their investment in HR also, it differs from organization to organization. Then thirdly, you get SME category and entrepreneurs. Their investment is also differs. And lastly, government organizations. When it comes to government organizations, as you all know, the HR transformation is somewhat limited. But I can talk about HR transformation in companies operating internationally. For an example, like companies like MAS, Brandix, Hydra Money, which are operating here in Bangladesh also. I'm sure that the audience, the people in the audience may be aware of those companies. They look at HR function like lean, mean, and seen function today. Lean, what I mean by lean is the HR has to be a lean process and shedding additional flesh, and has to be a very slim structure where they have started outsourcing a lot of non-value adding functions to different organizations and focusing on co-HR, right? That is one. Then mean means what is the value addition they bring in terms of recruitment, what type of quality of people they are recruiting, performance evaluation process, I mean how effectively people are being evaluated, and then succession planning process, right? How they develop talent within, right? How they make them competitive and make them competent to take up challenging jobs. And as a result, now I see even in Sri Lanka, there are people who are handling HR, taking over CEO's role. There are a couple of examples we can give. And CEO's role, HR people are becoming CEOs now in Sri Lanka. It's happening. And not only that, there's another thing happening. The people who are adding value to the organization with people skills, there's a tendency for organizations to take them into HR role. There are people who have come from sales, marketing, supply chain to head HR positions, right? As you know, in companies when they are operating like multinationals, it happens because they are getting job rotation. As a result, they develop their competencies in almost all the areas. And when the organization realized, oh, this person is a people's person who can add value to the organization, if the person takes over HR role, because the organization know what a value addition they can make if the right person comes to HR seat. So it's happening. Then seen, when I say seen, no point of organization, I mean, if you can't see, if the organization cannot see what is the contribution HR is making, that of course will be that will seem like as you all know, that qualitative contribution is very difficult to measure. So through various processes now, organizations show their HR contribution to the management, right, in terms of using technology, IT, graphics, they show their contribution.
Okay, Rohit, thank you. Rohit, thank you. Yuji, we are definitely convincingly looking at Japan with great degree of curiosity, how you have developed yourself so stunningly. So could you please put forward some advices to your neighboring countries, or countries like Bangladesh, how they can deal with HR, taking into account the experience you have underwent during over the last decades or so?
Japanese company traditionally have an importance of culture and behavior, and we develop culture and behavior for many years from old era. So, but recently we forgot the behavior and culture because many consultants advise our company to make to figure out HR or some economic figure. So we forgot the importance of invisible capital. So Japanese company must remember invisible capital, culture or idea or some behavior. So I suggest Bangladesh company to have importance of culture and behavior. It's a HR strength of Japan company, I think.
Mrs. Tu, where you would like to shed some light on HR transformation?
Oh, the HR transformation. Can you hear me? Okay. In Vietnam, it's very interesting to share you that from the no HR profession to now HR profession is highly recognized. We can contribute to the draft laws, to the lawmakers, the policy makers. Whenever they have a draft any laws, they just call me Chitu, Mrs. Tu. Can you ask your members in HR associations whether they have any comments on this draft? It's a labor code, it's a social insurance laws, it's a personal income tax, and all these things like that is in relevance to HR development and management. So we not only contribute to the development of our economy or our nations in general, but we influence in the lawmakers, policy makers. They appreciate our, the real practical experience. And not only in the drafting stage, they also come back to us after some time of implementation, any new laws, new policy. They come back and ask the HR professional, particularly HR associations, which I am president. How do you think of this decree or these laws, any changes we should make or things like that? So it's a very good way to put all our remarks, comments, and difficulty, proposal, things like that into the mind of the lawmakers, policy makers of Vietnam.
We are almost to end our conversation. A very common question to all of you. I know that you all are various influential figures in your countries in HR transformation, very pivotal, and you have been making very important role. So let me begin with Mr. Jagannath Naidu. They motivated you to start career in HR, and what are the memories you are taking back home after attending this conference?
I don't understand.
Initially in your early career, what motivated you? What prompted you to take up the HR challenges in your career? And give us some sense about the memories you are taking back home after attending this conference.
Yeah.
After attending this conference, maybe I have more friends. I'm closer with Muzaraf and BSHRM, and I see there are so many people in the HR profession, and everybody is the same understanding. We still don't know where HR should move, what direction it should take. We are still searching for direction. Of course, with this institute coming together with a team, we are trying to make a path more clearer. That's all I can say.
David, what's your reaction?
Well, why devoted the whole career in HR is that HR is really something within an organization.
Important thing.
Yeah, important, very important. intangibly.
Yeah.
Because we did not bring real hard cash to the organization. We bring in the soft cash. That is human. Human is something that you cannot evaluate or convert into dollar terms. So that is why in this industry, the rewarding thing is that you see people coming into the organization, grow with the organization, develop, and then have a career. Okay, that is one thing. The other thing that why I was really inspired and excited to be here is that not just because it is